Hi, everybody. It's Maxine Doogan with another rendition of Dominate the Nation. So, this week I want to talk about a particular podcast I've been listening to called Algorithm. This show is about an algorithm that identifies serial killers. Um, and it was concocted by this sort of researcher, reporter type guy. And he found a pocket of what he felt like were unsolved murders in Gary, Indiana, and tried to alert the police, but they didn't want to listen. So, years later, the story picks up about a particular serial killer that's found in Indiana. So you guys should all listen to this podcast. It's so interesting. Of course, the serial killer, targets street-based workers, of course. And what's really phenomenal about this podcast is it's got actual audio recordings. And one of the audio recordings is of a woman who is the booker for a woman named Africa who ends up killed on her job working as a prostitute. And the booker is able to tell the police, what was the last phone number that, of the guy that she sent to see Africa. And they're able to get that guy, and he is the serial killer, and they get him into custody. But, that woman does that in the face of, facing an array of felony, charges, for facilitating prostitution, which have all been recriminalized as, sex trafficking, when really she's just a part of Africa's, security. But I'm glad that she was able to do the right thing and tell the police the crucial information, to end that particular serial killer's reign of terror. She deserves a medal, really. Further on in the story, there's a story about a man and a woman named Marvin and Taria, and that story reminds me so much of Sarah DeReeve's story. Sarah DeReeves goes missing from the Lower East Side of Vancouver, BC in the late 1990s. Sarah's customers, her customer reported her missing, but the police wouldn't take the report, saying that there was some arbitrary rule that only a relative could report a missing person. So the customer contacts Sarah's sister, Maggie, and Maggie makes the report that, Sarah is missing. But, Sarah's status as a street-based drug using, prostitute, makes it so that the police, are not optimistic or, not interested in really looking for her because her, activities are criminalized, and they basically sort of blame her and the other 62 women that go missing in this time period, for their own missingness, right? The police don't find Sarah, but they do find her DNA on the property of a now convicted serial killer, Robert Pickton. And to this story, this podcast reminds me of the Green River Killer victims, whose boyfriends were often the ones to report them missing. And the police would, turn them away or not take them seriously because they just thought the boyfriends were pimps because the missing women's status as street-based workers. And instead, the Seattle Police Department, responds with conducting all these prostitution sting operations, that force many of those street-based workers who are already under stay-away orders to stay away from those known prostitution areas into other areas that were not well populated or well lit, and they become easy targets for the killer. So it's no surprise that in this particular podcast story, that this woman who is missing, Taria, one of the other missing women, that she, her fiance is trying to tell the police that this other worker named China knows where she is and to go talk to China. And so the police go talk to China, and of course they arrest her. And of course she doesn't cooperate with the police, right? So the police need to stop spending all this time on, prostitution arrests, which are often conducted under the guise of rescuing sex trafficking victims, who too are arrested for prostitution, and spend their time, on solving these missing and, all these rapes and murders. It's also crazy to me in the story, it highlights how the police let these violent predators, go, that the court system labels them as low risk, and, they're not subjected to any sort of long-term monitoring. And we think that predators who target prostitutes, especially street-based drug-using prostitutes, should have sentences that are enhanced, that keep them hung up in the system for a long time. That our legal status as criminalized workers, shouldn't enable the system and the predators to collaborate, to treat us like our lives don't matter when clearly our lives have value. California and Alaska have passed harm reduction laws that grant immunity to people for prostitution, from prostitution arrests and prosecutions when we're reporting, that we were a victim or witness to crime. And, to me, the algorithm podcast shows the exact ways in which the complete repeal of the anti-prostitution laws are crucial to stopping violence and increasing the public safety. So until next time.